If you watched my Intro to Programming series, in particular the 10th video, the last video in the series, you'll already have a bit of exposure to classes and objects. But they're a bit of a tricky concept to get used to when you first see them. So we're going to be going over them again, and in the following videos we're going to be building on top of it. So what is a class? A class has kind of two main purposes, I'd say. One of them is to group together similar functions and variables, and we're going to be looking at that in more detail in the next video. But the other main purpose is a little bit deeper than that, and also quite difficult to describe in just words. So let's have a look at an example. So we've got a program here where we've got three variables, and then three very similar variables, and then we're just outputting them to the console. So if we just go ahead and run this, we can see we get Benji, 5, and Golden Retriever separated by a comma and a space, and then Bailey, 10, and Dachshund also separated by a comma and a space. So in this case, because we've got these similar variables, this isn't really ideal. So for example, we've got my dog and we've got your dog. If we wanted to add someone else's dog, if you want to represent someone else's dog, so maybe their dog, what we could do is just go ahead and copy one of these, and then we need to make sure to change all these variables. And here we actually see one of the advantages of a statically typed language. If you remember from the Python example where I did the same thing, when I forgot to change your to there, it didn't even tell us. Python doesn't even tell us, whereas Java will say you've declared this variable twice, and that's quite nice. But we're still kind of rewriting a lot of code, and that's still not ideal. And then if we want to output this as well, we have to copy one of these lines, and there's a lot of copying and a lot of pasting, and we're going to end up with a very, very large file. What we want to be able to do instead is something a bit more like this. We want to be able to do my dog equals, and then we want to group all of these values together. So we had Benji, and then 5, and then Golden Retriever, like that. But you see, we can't just do that. Java is a statically typed language, so we're going to need a type. But what kind of type can store exactly what we want? What can store a string, and then an integer, and then another string? Or maybe we wanted to add another property to our dogs, in which case we would need a new data type to store that one. And it all gets basically unachievable until we introduce classes. So if we go above our main class, and let's add class dog. And now we can use this class as the data type for our new variable. Okay, so we've got dog as the data type. My dog is the variable, but we still can't understand what's in these brackets because that's just a collection of values in a pair of brackets. That doesn't make any sense. So what we need to be able to do is have, say, a function that will take these values and give us the format that we want to be able to give us a representation of a dog. Okay, so we could come up into the dog class, and what do we need? We need a string first, and this is going to be a name. Underneath this, we're going to need an integer that is the age, so we can do that. And after that, we will need another string for the breed. Okay, but we still haven't fixed the error yet. We're still getting the red squiggly line, and it wouldn't compile if we tried. So what we need to do is we need to add a constructor. We've got a class here, which allows us to bind some different values all into one place. But we don't have a way of sorting or putting the data into place. So that's what we're going to do next. We need a public function, and it's just going to be public dog. And this name here must be the same as the class name, because this is a special type of function called a constructor. And this is going to construct an object, and we're going to look at exactly what that means very shortly. So we've got our function that we can put in here, and it's going to be dog. We're actually going to need the new keyword just here, because it's a constructor. We need to construct a new dog. But we've still got the red squiggly line. We've still got the error, which says that the constructor for string int string is undefined. And that's because we don't have any parameters within this function yet. So we need to do that. So string, and then let's call this new name. And I'll explain why I've done new name instead of just name shortly. And then we need an int, new age, and string new breed. Okay, so now we've got a constructor. We're calling the function, and we get a MyDog object back. But it's not going to work quite as we want to yet, because we've created the object, but we haven't actually given these values to the object. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to access this variable, and that's going to be name. We need to do equals new name. We need to do that for all three of these values. So we need to do age equals new age, and breed equals new breed. And that's why I've chosen to do new name instead of just name, because if we did just name, then these two names would conflict with each other. There are other ways of getting around that using this dot. I'm not going to go into too much information about that now. If you want to look up how to use this, you can use the same name. This is also, this keyword is also used in a lot of other places, so it's very good to know, but we're not going to dive into that just yet. And so now that we've got all of these, let's print out my dog's name. So we do system.out.println, and we want to do my dog, and then the way we would access this is with dot and then name. So let's try this. And we get Benji out like that. So we create a new dog using this function. This function gives the parameter values, the values that we pass into the function, and it stores them to these three variables at the top here. And then it kind of binds them all together so that we can use mydog.name, mydog.age, or mydog.breed. And what's really good about classes is that if we want to add another dog, we can say we want another dog, another variable of type dog, another variable with the data type dog, and your dog. We need equals new dog again, but now we're just going to give it some different values. So we can say, what was it, Bailey? Yeah, and then 10, and then dash pound And classes don't conflict with each other. The name of my dog is different from the name of your dog. We've defined this in one place inside of the class. And so surely, once we've called this function, Benji is going through new name is being assigned to name. Bailey is doing the exact same thing. It's going to the dog function and being assigned to name, but name is separate for these different dogs. If I do system.out.println your dog.name and hit run, we can see Benji and Bailey. They are separate. But if we want all of the values separated by a comma and space like we had before, we still have to do quite a bit of writing. So we need mydog.name and then plus a comma and a space, plus mydog dot yes, age was next, and then plus comma space plus mydog dot breed. And if we wanted to do that for your dog, we'd have to type it out or copy it over again and again and again. So if you wanted to add a new dog, we can do that quite simply. We need to specify all of the unique values, but otherwise the code that we have to write is quite short. But if we want to display all of the information, we still have to do quite a lot. And this is where classes are different from structs, if you're familiar with languages like C or Rust or Swift. If you're not, don't worry, because we've seen everything we need to know to see what classes can do. But classes allow us to have not just variables, but also functions, and in fact other classes, but we're not going to be looking at that because that's not very common. So we can put our variables within a class, and we can put functions in a class. In fact, this constructor is itself a function. But we can add other functions. So maybe we want public, and we don't want a return value. So we're going to do public void, and then let's say show information. We haven't included static. We haven't got public static like we have down here. We're going to look at why that is in the next video. But we can, when we call show information, we can just print name, age, and breed. And in fact, let's copy this line here. We don't have access to the variable mydog inside of the class, but we do have access to just name, age, and breed. So if we just remove some of these, and now what we can do is, if we get rid of these, we don't even need to do system.out.println. We can just do mydog.showInformation and yourdog.showInformation, like that. And if we run this, we can see that we have the same effect as before. So the dog name, the dog age, and the dog breed. And we have it for every single dog. And we've kept it quite concise. I'd also like to add that the variables that we see within a class are often referred to as properties or attributes or sometimes fields. And the functions that we put inside of a class are sometimes referred to as methods. A class is like a template or a custom data type. When we instantiate a class, so when we create a new variable of the type dog, for example, we refer to these variables or the values as objects. An object is an instance of a class. So an object is just a certain format of data that stores different types of values. In this case, a name, an age, and a breed. The class is what defines the structure, and this is where we have string name, int age, string breed. The class also defines the methods that the object can use. And that's going to be all for this video. In the next video, we're going to be talking about the differences between static and dynamic properties and methods.